Today we're going to be talking about matter, the physical objects in front of us right now. And we're going to question their reality. Do they have their own standalone existence? So does the computer screen in front of us, does it have its own standalone existence? It sure does seem to. It's this physical object in front of me. How about the chair we're sitting on? Does it have its own standalone existence or reality? Or if you look outside, maybe there's an airplane going by. Does the airplane have its own reality? So this goes for any object that we know. Can we analyze it and scrutinize it to see if what we're looking at here has its own standalone existence relative to anything else? So I brought some props in today. This cloth represents all objects. As an objective thing, it's no different than the computer screen or the airplane. This thing sure does seem to have its own existence. It's just a typical washcloth. But as we start to tease it apart, it appears to become something other than itself. Threads start to appear. And if I tease it apart enough, I can tease the threads out of it. So now we go back and we ask the question, does this cloth have its own standalone reality, or does it borrow its reality from the thread? All of the threads. And in this example, we start to see that this cloth does not have its own existence. It doesn't support itself by itself. It needs something other than itself to give it its reality. What if I was to tease the thread apart? Does the thread have its own standalone reality? Nope. What gives the thread its own standalone reality? Hey, May, can you silence your microphone? That'd be wonderful. Thank you. The thread's underlying reality is fiber. So again, we're starting to break matter down or objects down into its true form of itself. So fiber, if we were to break the fiber down, well, I can't break it down further than this. We have to start to just go to concepts that we would know in biology and chemistry. But I'm going to come back. I'm just going to go to my 5 fingers so that we can track this. This is the cloth. The cloth's underlying reality is thread. The thread's underlying reality is fiber. We drop down into the fibers' underlying reality is carbohydrates. It's the carbohydrates that we eat, between that and the carbohydrates that we would consider fiber are just a twist in one of the bonds. It's really that simple. There's almost no difference. And the carbohydrates borrow its existence from carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So we come all the way back to the question, does this or any object have its own standalone existence? No. Just some simple biology and chemistry shows us that nothing so far that we can see has its own reality. Now let's apply this to the one object that we take so sincerely and honestly. How about our body? Does our body have its own standalone reality? Or does it borrow its reality from an underlying reality? Let's go to the 5 fingers. Here's the body. The body borrows its existence from 30 trillion cells. 30 trillion cells borrow its existence from what are known as organelles. The organelles of the cells, just simple cell walls, nucleuses, and other organelles in there that, like mitochondria, that create the energy. So cells don't have their own reality, and the body doesn't have its own standalone reality. These organelles borrow their reality from carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and these borrow their existence from carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. The same thing this does. So everything that's appearing in front of us borrows its existence from an underlying existence, which borrows its existence from an underlying existence, and so on, and so on, and so on. And if we were to drop down one more in this example or the body example, we get into electrons, protons, and neutrons, then anything that we know is equivalent. Anything that's in front of us, that's perceived by us, that we consider to be an object, arises out of electrons, protons, and neutrons. Continuing on with analyzing the body, there's a process that's constantly happening within our body. It's known as apoptosis. Apoptosis is programmed cell death. The body programs our cells to die so that new ones can take their place. And our cells die off at upwards to 330 billion cells a day. So we have 30 trillion and 300 plus billion die off every day. And they're replaced with new cells in a process known as meiosis and mitosis. What this is saying is that we're constantly replacing ourselves. This body is in constant replacement. I mean, even if you divide the 300 billion into 30 trillion, you get something like 90 days. Every 90 days on average, this body is replacing itself. And each individual organ replaces itself at its own different rates. Like your esophagus replaces itself every 10 days. I have a list here in Love Outpouring. It's pretty interesting. The bone marrow replaces itself every 3.2, kidney every 270, liver every 327, lung every 200. You have a brand new one. So which one are you? Are you the liver? So as the cells die, they're excreted. So we eat nutrients. New nutrients come in through meiosis. New ones are created. New cells are created, and through apoptosis, they die and slough off, and they leave us. So which body are you? The one you're going to eat in 15 years? The one you are now? Or the one you excreted 15 years ago? One last example. Research shows that for every one cell that we have 30 trillion, there's 1.3 bacteria cells within us. That means we have 38 trillion bacteria cells and 30 trillion human cells. Wouldn't that make us bacteria beings relative to human beings? Because from a sheer count, that would be true. Bacteria cells are 1/10 of the size of a human cell. That's why they're not physically detectable. But does size dictate relevance when it comes to life? Is a mouse more relevant than an elephant when it comes to life? When it comes to work, that might be true. An elephant can haul more and carry more than a mouse. But when it comes to life, does size matter? What this is all pointing to is that nothing is permanent, not even this body. Yet there is something within us that says, I have always been this body. What is that? When I reflect back over my life, I've always been me somehow. Yet I can agree that my body type changes, my knowledge changes, my wealth changes, my career changes, my friends change. Everything is changing, except there's something that doesn't change. What is that? Let's go back to the original example. Let's go to that which never changes. So the body, cells, the organelles, the carbohydrates, the carbon neutron or carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. We then drop into the electron, proton, and neutron. And anything up from here is the physical world. This is how it rises. But once we drop below the electron, proton, and neutron to see what its reality is, we drop into the quantum realm. And this, from a scientific point of view, it's the same. They study it in the same way. And what they've discovered is what gives these electrons and protons and neutrons its reality are things called mesons. And what gives mesons their reality is the underlying reality of gluons. What gives gluons their underlying reality are bosons. And what gives bosons their underlying reality is dark matter. And what gives dark matter its underlying reality is dark energy. And this dark energy to physicists is nothing but a mathematical computation of a two-dimensional field of infinite potential. They call it the unified field. It's the no-thingness that we talk about here in non-duality. This is where all the names of traditions, religions, spiritual, mystical, this is it. We all have our own names that we prefer. It could be Buddha mind, Brahman, God, spirit, one reality, whatever we want to call this. It's a fabric that has no boundaries. And in fact, this fabric was proven to be here in 2022 or 23 when 3 physicists proved that it was here. They proved that this fabric has no locality to it. Meaning if you touched it anywhere in its infiniteness, that everywhere else in the infiniteness would know you touched it here because there's no separation. These guys, these 3 physicists won the Nobel Prize for this just a few years ago. The non-locality was termed by David Bohm. And it just shows you that this whole progression that we just worked backward through is arising out of this no-thingness into computer screens, into airplanes, into bodies, which everything that we know, we think we know with our mind and bodies, we think it's a real thing. But we can agree that it does appear to be real. But when we scrutinize it, nothing has its own standalone reality. Only the one reality is what's appearing as the objective world, but it never becomes separate from it. Everything that we see is nothing but this one fabric appearing as objects. From a spiritual standpoint, we would say God alone exists, or spirit alone exists, or the one reality alone exists as this. And this one reality knows itself. See, nothing along the way can know itself because it's not an actual thing. It needs this to know this. This needs this to know this, and so on and so on and so on. It's the knowing within us. It's the knowing that knows electrons. It's the knowing that knows carbohydrates. It's the knowing that knows cells and bodies is the permanence we seek. The knowing that knows all of this is nothing but this. It's not this is nothing but the one reality of yourself. So when you come home to know yourself, that the one which knows, the one existence that knows, because it's non-local, it knows all. This underlying reality is what knows when it reflects back over its life. It's been permanent. This is the permanence that you're referring to, that you're experiencing and acknowledging that something is here that's never changed. And yet everything has obviously changed. This could be known as entropy, this change. This could be decay. Nothing physical remains. It's constantly decaying and changing. Yet you know that you're permanent. There's a permanence within all of us that never goes away, ever. And what's encouraged is to learn how to turn your attention to that permanence and only know that permanence alone. Because when you do, you're dropping all the way back into the unified field in which everything is known. That's the presence of being. That's the isness, the amness. That's here. The presence is real because you know you are real. Because that which is real has to exist, and we know we exist. And that which exists has to know it exists, or it wouldn't exist at all. So it's our knowing existence that is the fabric, the unified field of who we are. And so there is a way to funnel this back into the one. And it's through our attention, through self-enquiry is what it's known as, where we learn how to turn our attention from the objective world back into that which knows. You could say it's a retraction, it's a turning, it's a dissolving, however you want to put words around that and try to visualize that. And then in self-inquiry, actually doing that. It's not a doing, it's an undoing, because everything that is happening right now is the doing. It's already been done. It's an unefforting. It's an unthinking. It's an undoing. It's an unenergying back into the one that knows. So utilize these examples today as evidence that that which appears in front of us does not have its own standalone reality. It is you, yourself, your being that is the reality. It has its own standalone reality. It does not borrow its reality from anything else because there isn't anything else. There's only the one. There's nothing prior to it that gives it its own energy. It energizes itself just by being itself. Its own existence is its energy. So as we sit here in silence, and for those of us with our eyes open, we're perceiving the objective world. It's the knowing that knows the world. What is that knowing? And you might say, well, it's my mind that knows. It's my brain that knows. My mind is stored in my brain. But is a brain aware of itself? Or is it you who are aware of your brain? I can break the brain down in the same way that I just broke this cloth down. But that's my brain. What about my mind? Is your mind aware of itself? Could you put your mind in your hand and it could sit there and be aware of itself? No, it is you the aware one who's aware of your mind. It is you, the aware one, who's aware of your inert brain. Your mind is insentient. Your brain is insentient. Your body is insentient. These do not call themselves I. It is you, the sentient one, who is aware of your mind and your brain and your body. You're the sentient one that knows. So come back into the knowing that knows your mind or knows anything. Because whatever you come up with, it will never be sentient. Whatever object appears in your awareness, being mental with all of your thoughts, ideas, images, memories, your body, all of its sensations, feelings, emotions, anything that you perceive with your five senses, in any of the objective world. None of these objects, none of these things are sentient. They do not call themselves I. It is you, the aware one, who's aware of all of them, is the reality. And not the reality of just what the physicists have found. This is the spiritual realm. These are the sages and the saints and the chiefs, the poets and the mystics. This is what the wise ones for eternity have been pointing to, is the sentientness of yourself, of your being. Your being does not have to leave itself to go find anything other than itself, to bring that back to itself, to know itself. Meaning it doesn't have to go out into the world to learn something or become something or get something to then bring that back to itself, to know itself. No, it just knows itself by being itself. Its innateness is its own self-knowledge. in self-knowledge because it does not know separation, which was proven by these three physicists that I discussed that won the Nobel Prize for non-locality. Separation does not exist. It's an illusion created by our mind. And when the mind goes, unity is experienced. And in the experience of unity, is the inherent property of unconditional love and acceptance for what is. Love knows no separation. Love is the absence of individual. Or if there's an individual, the individual is going to take itself as an object and see everything other than itself as objects. So when you experience yourself as love, there is no individual there. There are no others. There's only unity of the one. That one loves itself just by being itself. Even when it projects itself out into the world as the world, it doesn't know the world is separate from itself. It only knows the love of itself appearing as the world and all of the objects within the world. So science has proven that love exists. And because you exist, then you are love itself.